All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for being here. We're going to call this meeting September 21st to order. I'd like to start out with asking Mrs. Rose to call the roll.
Councilmember Steve Rice.
Here.
Councilmember Barbara Spector. Here. Councilmember Joe Brzezinski.
Here.
Vice Mayor Diane McNutt. Here. Mayor and Chair Mike Wasserman.
Here. Thank you very much. And I'd like to ask everyone here, please, to turn your cell phones to vibrate, silent, whatever, just so we don't hear them, out of courtesy to everyone here. Thank you very much. We're now going to do the Pledge of Allegiance, and I'd like to ask Daniel Risto, 7th grader from Fisher Middle School, to join me.
Sorry.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good, I'm fine, thank you. Let's hear it for Daniel for being up here. You're lucky. Normally we have a few more people here and there's not as much pressure. All right, you ready to lead us off? All right, you start us off.
Okay. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Nice job, Daniel. Thank you. All righty. Well, it's wonderful to look out here and see all these familiar faces and community members. Before we go to the next part, which is the proclamation dealing with Project Cornerstone, I just want to tell anyone here that may not have heard this before, or maybe some of you that have heard this before, I might elaborate upon it a little bit more. Over the last few years, this council, this town, has seen what Project Cornerstone has been doing in our community to help increase the developmental assets of young people. And when this town realized what a wonderful thing was happening in our schools, and a pleasure to have our superintendent here and principal, we thought, how can Los Gatos partner with Project Cornerstone? How can we work together to help children everywhere in town to be healthier, happier, and more successful? And so the idea came up to start a community-wide outreach, to reach out to our sports leagues, to our businesses, to our faith organizations and our service clubs, and ask all of them, do you value youth? We knew what they would say. And if so, will you help us help kids and increase their developmental assets? 9 months ago, our goal was to reach out to 50 organizations and try and introduce Cornerstone to 5,000 adults and help them learn and understand what's been going on in our schools for the last several years, thanks to 1,500 volunteers that are involved and active in this county. Well, I'm happy to say, after our 9 months of outreach, we were able to reach 68 organizations. And 17,800 adults. Okay? Thank you. All of you. So tonight we're here to celebrate and also to acknowledge those people involved. And what I would like to do right now, it's a little bit unusual, but I want you to have recognition on the television. Okay? This is a little bit unusual, I understand, because there's a lot of you. But what I would like to ask is for one representative, and I know in some organizations here have 2, 3, or 4, one representative from each organization that has signed the Project Cornerstone pledge forms. And that's what these are. Here's 68 forms that each of these organizations have signed saying, we value youth. We want to help increase the developmental assets of young people. I would like to ask for one representative from each organization that has participated in this outreach to please come forward, join me at the podium, stand behind me, and Ann Arisman, the Executive Director of Project Cornerstone, if you'll please come up here as well. And we also have Robert Van Unen. Where's Robert? Robert is our newly elected chair of the Youth Commission. Don't have Robert here at the moment? All right, maybe he'll come in just a minute. Ann, if you'll come on forward. And everybody else, don't be shy, okay? The council can see you now, but I want the people watching to see you as well. So please come gather around. Come on through. Let's have the short people in the front, taller people in the back. All right, thank you. Want to stand up? That would be wonderful. Come on forward here. Brandy, this is our past chair of our youth commission. Brandy, thank you very much for doing that. What we have here is we have two proclamations. They're identical. Brandy, I'm going to hand you one on behalf of the Youth Commission, and Ann, I'm going to hand you one on behalf of Project Cornerstone. This is Ann Arison, the Executive Director of Project Cornerstone. This is the lady I've been working with to help this community-wide outreach. Is your daughter here? Okay. Her daughter is a tremendous photocopier and collator. Unbelievable. And I guess they have this electronic stapler because we were trying by hand. It's tremendous. Okay, I'm going to read this now, and when I read the organization, if a member of that organization is here, please raise your hand just so you can be recognized. Whereas Project Cornerstone has been a positive influence in the Los Gatos school system since 2006, and whereas the town of Los Gatos recognized the importance and effectiveness of Project Cornerstone in our community and wanted to assist Project Cornerstone's vision of building a web of support around every young person. And whereas Project Cornerstone's goal is to ensure that every element of our diverse community understands and embraces the fact that interacting with young people is important and that every interaction makes a difference. Whereas Los Gatos values youth. A community-wide outreach program was initiated in January, the result of which introduced Project Cornerstone and the importance of developmental assets to 17,000 adults. And whereas, to date, in addition to the schools, the following, and that's important, because this outreach was specifically to everybody besides the schools. They'd been doing this for years and doing a great job, and we were trying to mimic and imitate what goes on in our schools. So I'm not going to read school names in this, because they were already doing it. We were trying to catch up with them. In addition to the schools, the following 68 organizations have pledged to help increase the developmental assets of young people, to help them become healthy, happy, and successful adults. And remember, when I read from the Cornerstone website the importance of our diverse community, when you hear these names, listen to the diversity. Listen to the organizations that said, heck yes, we value youth. We'll sign that pledge form. Each of them picked 5 developmental assets out of the list of 40 and said, these are important to us. Well, they're all important to us, but these we'll commit to working on. So here we go. These are the organizations that have signed those pledge forms to help our kids. A Place for Teens Board. And remember, when I raise your name, I'm just going to keep going, so just raise your hand. Addison Penzac Jewish Community Center. Affordable Treasures. Elaine Pinnell Realtors. The Assistance League of Los Gatos, Saratoga. Baha'is of Los Gatos. Bedford and Bedford Team. Books Aloud. Boulevard Financial Group. Boy Scout Troop 501, Adult Leaders. Boy Scouts of America, Troop 539. California Federation of Women's Club. Calling All Kids. Calvary Church. CASA. Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Chin Chin. Cinecats Film Showcase Organization. Congregation Sher Hadash. Courtside Club. Econovate. El Camino Hospital, Los Gatos. Faith Lutheran Church. Hillbrook School. History Club of Los Gatos. Holy Cross Lutheran Church. Ignite Marketing. Interfaith Group. The Italian Catholic Federation. The Kiwanis Club of Los Gatos. Kiwanis Club of San Jose. Live Oak Adult Daycare Services. Los Gatos Chamber of Commerce. Los Gatos Community Foundation. Los Gatos High School New Millennium Foundation. Los Gatos Lions Club. Los Gatos Little League Board. Los Gatos Morning Rotary Club. Los Gatos Saratoga Recreation Department. Los Gatos United Methodist Church. Los Gatos United Soccer League. Los Gatos Youth Commission. Mission Valley Chorus. PG&E. Presbyterian Church of Los Gatos. Persnickety and Bow Wowzer, Restaurant James Randall, the Rotary Club of Los Gatos, St. Luke's Episcopal Church, St. Mary's Catholic Church, Seventh-day Adventist Church, the Silicon Valley Association of Realtors, the Silicon Valley Leadership Group, Skyland Church, Southwest YMCA, State Farm, Greg Landers Insurance, Teen and Family Counseling Center, Todd Disley Athletics, Silver-Tongued Cats Toastmaster Club, Togos of Los Gatos, Town of Los Gatos, the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Los Gatos, Venture Christian Church, Victoria Capital Mortgage, Yarn Dogs, and the YMCA of Silicon Valley. Let's hear it for your community, people. Now, therefore, be it resolved, I, Mike Wasserman, by the virtue of the authority vested in me as the mayor of the town of Los Gatos, do deem it appropriate and do hereby proclaim that the town of Los Gatos values youth and is proud to exemplify that through the efforts and accomplishments of Project Cornerstone. Thank you very much. Brandy, this goes to you on behalf of the teens. Thank you. No, I'm not reading it all again. And this is to the Executive Director of Project Cornerstone, Ann Erisman. All right. Thank you very much. Did Robert, did he happen to come in? No? All right, he missed out. Thank you very much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. On behalf of the Town Council, the people of Los Gatos, thank you all very much for caring about our kids and committing to this. Thank you. I left. Excuse me. Okay. And Los Gatos Rowing Club, which sorry about that, John. Did I skip over it? Okay. And John, where's John? John. It's on the commendation. I missed it. Okay, and what's coming out tomorrow, it's in there too. Thank you. Thank you. Yes. 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 Thank you.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. No big deal. It's perfect. Let's go. Thank you.
All right, and I also want to mention Los Gatos Parent Nursery School. I might have missed that when I was reading down the list. All right, we're now moving on to the next part of our agenda. We'll let the chambers clear here for just a minute. If you're staying, please have a seat. If you're staying, please have a seat. If you're going, please have a good Monday night. All right. We now have the closed session report, and I'll turn to Mr. Ori Korb for that. If everyone in here could please hold it down with respect. Thank you. We'll close those doors. Thank you, Wendy. All right, Mr. Korb.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, members of the public. The town council did meet in closed session tonight for a conference with its real property negotiator concerning two separate properties. The first is 20 Dittos Lane. The second is 930 University Avenue. The council gave direction to its negotiator. No final reportable actions were taken with regard to both of these properties. However, both of these properties are on the open session agenda for discussion tonight. 20 Dittos Lane is number 9 on the agenda, and 930 University is number 6 on the agenda for action tonight. And that concludes my report.
Thank you very much. We now have council matters followed by manager matters. Council, anything you wish to bring up at this time? No? Okay, we'll turn to Manager Greg Larson. Mr. Larson.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, 4 items to report. First, the town plaza renovations are continuing, and tomorrow the new sod will be installed. The temporary construction fencing will be kept up for up to 8 weeks to make sure the roots take, but we will be making the fountain accessible as soon as possible, hopefully by the weekend for the hot weather. Second,
Excuse me, Mr. Larson, on the sod, could you just expand on that as far as cost or what's happening there?
Sure. The council and public may recall we installed new sod last spring. The sod is being replaced at no expense to the town to ensure that we have the quality plaza that we want for the years ahead.
Thank you.
Second, the town is starting its annual program of street slurry work. Due to unexpected rain a week ago and unexpected heat wave these coming few days, we are adjusting the street slurry schedule. We will be doing those streets or portions of streets that only have 1 lane in each direction at night to minimize traffic impacts, while we'll be doing the multi-lane streets during the day, closing 1 lane in each direction to take advantage of the hot weather, which helps the slurry cure. Third, Caltrans is also starting a series of street work. They are repairing the bridge decks over 17 at both Main Street and Highway 9, and in early October they'll be starting their own slurry seal work over all of Highway 9 from 17 to Saratoga. So you should see significant improvement in the major town streets over the next 2 months. Last, next Tuesday, a week from tomorrow, 9 Los Gatos businesses are going to be recognized as green businesses by Santa Clara County. That will take the town of Los Gatos up to a total of 23 businesses that have been recognized by the county as green businesses for following environmentally sound practices. That concludes staff's report at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Larson. And those 23 green businesses that you said Los Gatos has, how does that compare with other communities?
Well, we would never, of course, pat ourselves on the back for having...
No, I just want a statistical fact.
Let me pull that up, Mr. Mayor.
Sure. I have no idea.
Hang on, I did have that, but I threw it down here. There we go. Trying to recycle. To be exact, we have 23 businesses as of next Tuesday. Saratoga has 5, Campbell has 11.
Huh, imagine that. Thank you. All right. Moving right along, we're now on to consent items. And we'll turn to council first to see if there's any consent items that wish to be pulled. Seeing none, and I have no cards pulling consent items. So that would be the public portion if you wanted to speak about consent items, and I don't have any. So that public portion is closed, and I turn to council for a discussion or a motion. Madam Vice Mayor.
I'll move approval of consent items, and I'm sure you did want to note that there was a desk item regarding item number 2.
Thank you.
Second.
We have a motion made to approve and recognition of a desk item regarding number 2.
There's also a
seconded.
desk item on number 1.
Yes, we do. Thank you. We have a desk item on 1 and a desk item on 2, so that's into the record. We have a motion made to approve, and it's seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Okay, now we're into what's called verbal communications, and in front of you, you'll see little cards like these. And if you wish to speak about anything on tonight's agenda or not on tonight's agenda, we'd like you to fill one of these out. We're at the portion now which is verbal communications, where you can speak about anything not on the agenda. And we're going to start out with the Honorable Chuck Page here. All right, Mr. Mayor.
All right. Thank you, Honorable Mayor Wasserman and members of this illustrious council. Now, if you're into competitions, I think you ought to look at the percentage of businesses, because we have a lot fewer than you. But that's not why I'm here.
Use your 3 minutes however you like.
I'm hoping you'll give me a little liberty, because unfortunately I can't stay for your meeting. But I just wanted to both commend and congratulate you all for your vision and for doing what you're going to do later on in this meeting, I hope, for the kids and in terms of the fields. It's something that the West Valley cities have never had the space to do. I congratulate you on your leadership, and I look forward to it being just a stellar opportunity for the kids in the West Valley to participate in some sports locally. That we see kids in the East Bay have these magnificent sports fields and stuff, and we just haven't had the ability. We share with schools and everything else, and I just wanted to commend you and just let you know that we're right behind you. We're really proud of you, and anything we can do to help, we'd love to. So
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for coming here. Thank you.
Welcome. Have a good time.
Thank you. Okay, next under verbal communications is Citizen Ray. Money? Money would be good.
Yeah, nice to see you all, and what a wonderful thing to have a lovely crowd here tonight, you know. It's usually so close to empty. It's hard to believe. Beautiful. First comment. I want to talk about the naming of our gorgeous mountain, okay? I, for one, have no interest in seeing the proposed name of this man Collard. He might have been a saint. I'm sure he was. But as far as I'm concerned, this mountain is all about natural beauty. It's not about any individual, okay? Now, we've had it partially raped by Brzezinski over here, Madam Josephine Brzezinski, and Diane McLump, with the DeSantis project, where they bulldoze and they cut pad the gorgeous mountain, contrary to all the rules and standards. Very deceitful, very dishonest, unbelievable. So I just want to be sure that the mountain gets a proper name when, as, and if it's time to name it. If it's now, let's have a selection of names. Let's have it reflect the natural beauty that all our laws, our hillside specific plan, our hillside design standards stand up for. Thank you. Lastly, we had a huge meeting over at Cupertino Thursday night, okay, on the cement plant. And I got to tell you, the people of Los Gatos are asleep at the switch as to what is happening with this cement plant in the Cupertino foothills. I had a chance last Tuesday to measure the extent of the cloud that comes from the cement plant. The cloud of poison, literally, emanates from Stevens Creek Boulevard, the end of it, and I traced that in my car all the way down to Camden on Highway 85, going directly downwind. That's 15 miles of poison blowing over Cupertino, Saratoga, Los Altos Hills, Los Gatos, on down in the part of San Jose. It's unbelievable. And wide, I took a cut on 17 and went as far south as the Cats before my symptoms, my crazy eyes, and my locked up nose before they all relaxed, okay? That means that plant, when it operates, and the winds are right, and they're normally right to blow down to us, okay, generates a cloud of dust 15 miles long and 5 miles wide, and it will be in the newspaper shortly.
Set a good example. That's good. Thank you very much.
Yeah, please, no more warnings. I can't stand any more warnings.
Okay, next we have Mr. Chris Miller.
Good evening. Tonight I'm representing the board for Place for Teens. I am the president of that organization. Just wanted to say thank you. Thank you to, we are a board of 6 teens and 6 adults that support teens here in Los Gatos. Just wanted to thank the town for their past and future support of the organization. Wanted to thank the schools, both the high school district and the elementary district, for their support, and to the public for their support in the past at the Food Fest this past August. We're going to be having a garage sale during the community-wide garage sale event in a couple of weeks. and for an upcoming fundraising event called the Venue-a-thon, which will be in March of 2010, and there'll be more publicity. I just wanted to say thank you to everyone who's watching for their support.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Okay, and that ends the cards that I have for verbal communication. So we will close that portion. We'll turn to public hearing item number 5. And we're going to start with a staff report from Wendy Rooney, or Mr. Larson, are you going to give the direction?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, we're recommending continuance of that item till October 5th. Director Rooney is available if council has any questions, but the staff recommendation is continue to your next meeting.
I see the recommendation. Do you need a motion?
Yes, we do.
Thank you. So I will, well,
You have to call public.
we don't have any cards on, we don't have anyone speaking on 5. That portion's fine. I'll turn to council then for a motion regarding staff's request to continue item number 5 to October 5th.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, item number 5 is moved to October 5th. We now move to item number 6.
Vote? You want to
Excuse me, we could take a vote. That's a good point. A vote. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Nay. Okay. Got that done. Now we're moving on to item number 6. And item number 6 is to consider a staff report and recommendations regarding community and youth sports facilities and the acquisition of 2.7 acres from Verizon Corporation at 930 University Avenue. We have a staff report coming by our deputy town manager. Oh, it's going to be by our town manager. Town manager Greg Larson is going to kick this off. And for anyone that's sitting on that wall there, you might want to relocate over here so that you can see the screen, especially, oh, you've got the PowerPoint pass. Boy, this staff is really good. Okay, so anybody that wants to move, please move now so we're not disrupting when someone is speaking. Otherwise, we'll get the show on the road.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, copies of the slides are being provided to the council, as well as a single-page sheet with all the slides for the members of the public. We only made 50 copies, so there may have to be some sharing in the public. The slide that's on the screen is not an inaccurate one. It says June 2nd, 2008, and this was the presentation the council received just over a year ago about developing a comprehensive plan for finally creating a Los Gatos sports facility, which the council adopted at that time. Tonight's presentation, though, is a promise fulfilled, the steps that you have taken and are directing your staff to take to move forward. And I would like to just pause briefly and acknowledge Deputy Town Manager Bud Lortz, Town Attorney Ori Korb for their leadership and staff efforts in bringing this proposal to you tonight for your consideration. Our presentation will consist first of some background information, give you an update on the direction you gave us last June, talk about a recommended land acquisition and the steps to follow. Moving first to your action last year. You adopted a blueprint in June of 2008 that encompassed the sale of town land in Vasona Park. That land was appraised at residential values and sold to the county, even though they committed it would remain in perpetuity as parkland. And even today, there's not been a single change to the use of that land by our residents or neighboring residents. It's still available as a community resource. In exchange for that sale of land to the county, the town received $6 million, which you directed be established in a reserve for future sports facilities that would accrue all interest thereof. You also directed a series of short and long-term actions, which I want to provide you a brief update on where we are with that prior direction. First, following the renovation of the field at Oak Meadow Park, that park is now being used 4 days a week for soccer practice, as you directed. Second, the basketball and tennis courts in town have been scheduled for resurfacing later this fiscal year, pending the release of the state bond funds, which we actually think is going to happen. So we do count on getting those funds from the state to do the court resurfacing. And we have also developed a program for tot lot renovations through next fiscal year. And for a long time, the town has not had master plans for each of its parks. Last June, a year ago, the council directed that we update or create master plans for first Balzer Field and Blossom Hill Park, largely to ensure that we maintain and upgrade our existing recreational facilities. The Balzer Field master plan will be completed this year, and the Blossom Hill Park master plan no later than next year. And as the council's well aware, the general plan update is continuing with its focus on recreation as well as youth and senior services, which have clear sports and recreational overlap as well. But a clear part of our focus for the last year has been sports facilities. As the council knows, there have been multiple studies that have been done over the last 20 years about possible sites for sports facilities in town. In the last 6 months, we have considered all possible sites, looking at both short-term and long-term opportunities, existing facilities that could be improved, or new facilities that could be created, and we've even looked outside of the town boundaries for possible sites that may serve our residents. Our efforts have even extended to looking at using the tops of water reservoirs or drainage fields to cover them for soccer fields and the like. But one site has emerged as the best opportunity for your consideration, and that is the former Verizon Corporation yard at 930 University. To bring this into geographic reference, here's the town with Highway 17, Blossom Hill going to the right or east, Highway 85 at the north, and Highway 9 at the bottom going off to the left. Vasona Park is in the middle. And the site we're recommending for your consideration is immediately north of Vasona Park. It's the green square up above the lake that we're recommending for your acquisition. Centrally located in town with tremendous access off of Lark Avenue, University, Winchester, and Highway 17. To give you a little blow-up of the site, that's the existing site. It looks like one building. It's actually two structures comprising roughly 18,000 square feet. It was a corporation yard, so it's a very flat piece of property that is largely paved and is ripe for redevelopment as a sports facility. It's very accessible. This just shows you the site on the bottom, right above the Lake Vasona. You can see just a tip of it. You can see Lark Avenue at the top, Winchester to the left, University running vertically in the middle with the driveway access to our site. And the green swath coming from the top right corner down to the bottom middle next to the lake is actually the creek trail, the Los Gatos Creek Trail. So there's three ways to get possible access to the creek trail. One is the red trail going to the north and connecting up at Lark Avenue. A third possible way would be a bridge going over the creek, which you see on this picture right about there. And then the third opportunity is to actually use the dam structure on the bottom to try to find an access point there. So we think this site is very accessible both vehicularly and by pedestrians and bikes, and has tremendous opportunities for the town. And it's a blank slate. Here's what the parcel is in close-up. We've retained for this example one structure. It's about 5,000 square feet, showed where parking could be laid out, and you see there's still ample land down in the southern portion. And just as one example, we've put on 2 soccer fields, 2 courts, which could be basketball or tennis, showing this site with 60 parking spaces and retaining that building as a possible recreation center. I do want to note, however, that full design and plan review, including public notice, will be required for any new facilities and services. And part of the effort we're asking for your direction on tonight is to start that design process going ahead. The recommended acquisition is for 2.7 acres with the 2 structures totaling nearly 18,000 square feet. The toxic environmental review has been completed to the town's satisfaction. The recommended purchase price is $3.1 million. $150,000 deposit has already been provided. Upon your action tonight, we'll provide the other $50,000 deposit required for the contract with close of escrow. We're having a little problem here. Anticipated by November 12th, 2009. And then the town will have access and control of the property. Next steps would be to complete the acquisition and secure the property, to continue the general plan update process, given the General Plan Update Advisory Committee is currently considering goals and policies that could aid our consideration of future recreational needs for the community, and then to continue our stakeholder outreach with Santa Clara County, Santa Clara Valley Water District, Los Gatos Saratoga Recreation Department, youth and adult sports groups, as well as neighboring businesses and residences. The recommendations that are on the screen are the same that was included in the staff report. This concludes staff presentation. Deputy Manager Bud Lorch is available to answer any questions you have. I also wanted to highlight the council subcommittee that provided direction on this particular acquisition of property, and that was Vice Mayor McNutt and Councilmember Brzezinski.
Thank you, Mr. Larson. Council, any questions of staff at this time? None? Okay, I'm going to turn to the cards we have. I have 2 cards from the public regarding this item. First is Citizen Ray. This is item number 6 on your agenda.
Without any particular due respect, Mr. Larson, I'm sorry to say you misrepresented the facts, okay, on the Vasona Park. For those of us who were in Los Gatos at the time, it's a well-known fact, the county policy in Vasona Park is for no sports recreation for the kids. That's why when we lost our property, our 13.5 acres, it was such a grievous hit for the kids of Los Gatos, okay? Now, Brzezinski and McNutt and you weren't here. You're off the hook. You're lucky that this land was available. Or maybe you knew about it a year and a half, 2 years ago. Maybe you knew about it. And all this has, been construed through your backdoor insider negotiation where you kept the people secret and you kept us in the dark. Maybe. Do I give you the credit for that? Yeah. You're sneaky enough. Yeah, you could have done that. But I want to tell you also, there's another misrepresentation of the facts here, in my opinion. It says here that the year-end balance of the special reserve was $6,075,000. Now, if the sale was $6 million, our interest was only $75,000. How can you have that little interest on $6 million in 1 year when your money is out at about 3.5% as per the town treasurer? So you're misrepresenting the total. Total should be $200,000 plus at 3.5%. So where's the missing money, Mr. Larson? Where is the missing money? I'm going to call it missing money for the moment, okay? Unless you have some kind of honest report. Lastly, 2.7 acres are big enough for one full-size soccer and one less than full-size, okay? And I saw that layout, proposed layout, on the screen, and what is it missing? It's missing any public interest comment as to its potential and its effect on the community. You, the employees, in an ad hoc committee have got together and come up with a proposal where half the property is parking. I mean, I can't believe it. And it ain't going to happen if the people have, in my opinion, if the people have to say so.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. You may sit down.
I beg your pardon?
That's a warning. Your time is over.
Oh!
Please sit down.
Threatening me.
No, I said please sit down.
Oh, that's better, with a nice tone of voice. I'm going to vote for you, for
Next we have,
moving on up and supervisor and get rid of you.
Mr. Mayor, if I could respond on the interest issue, please.
sure, you betcha.
The number provided in the staff report was provided from our Director of Finance. The county funds were received last November. As the council's well aware, all towns' funds that are in reserve are held in a special fund called the Local Agency Investment Fund, which is at the safest instruments possible. The average interest rate for last year was 2.2%, and $75,000 is the interest we received on that account. This bill will be deposited into it as year end, and that's just one of many inaccuracies that were just shared with the council.
That is true. Thank you very much. All right, we'll continue on with our speaker cards. And I have Mr. Mendoza Tulin, is that correct? Correct. Mr. Mendoza, you'll go first, please, and then Maria Risto, you will follow.
Good evening, everybody. I'm very happy to be here. As it is, I recognize many of your faces, okay? But I recognize not only your faces, but I recognize the children's faces here, more so. I'm very happy as it is to represent not only myself here as a soccer advocate, as a soccer fan, as a soccer entrepreneur, but more so as a father, okay? That is an important topic for me to come and present it. I represent my family. I'm very happy to have this project here that overall will not just make a big impact on the children, but overall on all of us, okay? So thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you very much. Next, we have Maria Risto.
Hi, I'm Maria Risto, 85 Broadway, Los Gatos. I'm here as a parent and as a soccer coach and as a member of the Los Gatos United Soccer League board. I'm just so excited. When I heard about this project, I just thought I have to be here tonight. This is something that I know a lot of people have put a lot of work into. As the Commissioner of Recreational Soccer, we've got about 1,300 kids playing soccer this year, and we have no town fields. And this would just address so many needs. We've got kids practicing in San Jose. We've got kids practicing at all different hours. To have a unified place that kids can ride their bikes to, this will just put such a great facility to use for so many kids and really exemplifies another part of the town's Project Cornerstone commitment to our kids. So I want to thank you for the work you've done so far.
Thank you. Mr. Tony Alarcon, followed by Eric Eberly.
Hello, Council. Tony Alarcon, 229 Johnson Avenue. I wanted to say, first of all, thank you for your support for the town. The great library that we're going to have coming, it's going to be a great addition to our town. And for the soccer field, the one question that I have for you, I think we need soccer fields, is that I would like to know if that facility is within the flood zone, and if there has been any study done on the dam. Because of the location, my only concern is if there was an earthquake, of what magnitude can that dam hold? Because if the dam was to break, given its location and the amount of water that could come down from Basona, that could be a problem with having kids in the field. My daughter plays soccer, and I fully support buying a soccer field or sports facilities here, and fully support the location if those issues have been addressed. So I'll leave the balance of my time.
Thank you, Mr. Alarcon. Mr. Lortz, could you respond to that for a moment, please?
The site is not in a flood hazard area. It is actually up above elevation of the neighboring residential area on the other side of the creek. So that would be the area that would flood if the dam broke. But the analysis...
Sorry.
The analysis will include the structural integrity of the dam. If there was an earthquake of that magnitude, we'd be worried about Lexington as well as Basona. So both would have to be taken into consideration.
Super. Thank you very much for that response. Eric Eberly, thank you very much. Followed by Randy Chen.
Thank you, Council. A few points I just want to bring up, being a soccer player myself, as well as a coach. My daughter plays here in Los Gatos. A few things you need to look at is there really a place that is designated a soccer field? Somebody brought up go down to play at Oak Meadow, ask all of you to go down there and try to walk on Oak Meadow in the lawn there and see if you could twist your ankle. These kids take a huge risk down there. I've done it myself and darn near sprained my ankle. This field will give security to kids to give them a new beginning in Los Gatos alone, which we don't have right now. Besides the football field at Los Gatos High, which is phenomenal, soccer players can't go on that. So this is a new beginning for us. If we build this, there's opportunity for the town to actually gain some money on this. There's concerts you could have there. There's other opportunities besides just soccer. And I ask you to all think of the vision of this field and that location and the size of it. There's more potential than just soccer. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Randy Chen, followed by Steve Leonardis.
Hi, Randy Chen. I just wanted to thank you guys so much for working so hard to find a location. It seems like a great location. We definitely need the soccer fields, as you know. I just wanted to elaborate on Maria's 1,300. Those are recreational players. We have an additional 500 competitive and competitive players, so there's about 1,800, and it will help bring our soccer program up to, to the level that some of our neighboring communities have, with a great place to play for our competitive teams. And thank you very much. And we also need a place to hold our board meetings, so we're ready to use that building. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Steve Leonardis, followed by Ed San Juan.
Hi, I'm Steve Leonardis, 136 Terracita Way, and I just want to applaud the council for their vision on this. I know you had your critics about a year and a half ago, and me being one of them, but I'm glad to see this come to fruition, and I'm hoping that the community will obviously get a lot of use out of it. It'll benefit all of us. One fleeting thought I had was, based on what one of the previous speakers said about the football field and the quality of the grass out there, I'm a big proponent of what they call a field turf. It's a fake grass that you don't have to water, you don't have to maintain. It's in perfect condition all the time, probably safe to run on. I understand it runs a little warmer than real grass, but something for us to consider in the long term to be greener and more cost effective in the long run for this facility. So that's it.
Thank you. Mr. San Juan, and that's the final card I have on item number 6.
Good evening, Mayor, Town Council members. Thank you for having us tonight. I want to bring a much larger crowd. Monday night must be hard for a lot of the kids. I know it is for my U14, my freshman team. I only have 2 members here, but believe me, all the people that you see in this room wearing jerseys represent the hearts of 1,800 kids, and what we found out through statistics is that about 80% of the people who live in this community have their kids play soccer, whether it's with us, whether it's with Harley and Steve, whether it's with another group in the area, Pal. They play soccer. They might play 1 or 2 years, some might play 12 or 13, but the needs are real. We have on the average of 1,800 plus a year, and we average losing 2 teams worth of families per year to other leagues because we can't provide them a solid base performance field. This would provide a lot of needs that would help with everybody's, it would just relieve the pressure. And we've talked about this many times, and I'm so appreciative that you guys are listening and have come to understand the way things I have. We have pure gender equity every year. We're not just, selling one sport to one gender. And so you'll see a lot of shared field space. I promise you that. I promise you that we will let everybody use this field if the opportunity presents itself. And the only thing I can really do here is ask you to create an opportunity for us to be partners and to give birth to something really new and fresh in the town of Los Gatos. Mike has talked about this before, about the possibilities. Boy, it's incredible, and I think Mr. Arpley talked about the same thing, fundraising opportunities for other uses. Boy, it just does not end. I know Harley and Steve would love to have it in the daytime for their recreation program. We only need a few hours a day, weekends. We promise we'll be good neighbors. I have a great team of people in this boardroom, and we have full email list for every member in the league that we fire out anything. If somebody has lost something, it goes out right away, and we have instant response time. We have a little mini police department. We try to do the best we can, but at the same time, we have to be sensitive to the needs of the community. We have a lot of folks that really want to be here and support, but for obvious reasons, Monday night, work nights, today's economy, people are not here. But I know for a fact that, well, people will be begging you for this vote. Unanimous would be fabulous, because we'll know that you're behind us, and there's a lot of people behind us too. So I also bring back your flag, which I borrowed.
Oh, can you hold a second there?
Sure.
Thank you. That finishes that portion of the speaking about item number 6. But I'm interested, Mr. San Juan, what do you have there with you?
Well, I borrowed this flag from you after applying to play at the International Children's Games in Athens, and for the second year in a row, we did very well. In fact, we won.
I'm sorry, Mr. San Juan, if you could please just, this isn't part of this item, but if you could just please explain, because it is soccer related, et cetera. You took a team of Los Gatos and went where and did what?
The International Children's Games is it's a youth version of the Olympics, and it's sponsored by the Olympic Committee, the World Olympic Committee, and we applied to be representatives of California, United States, and they accepted it with our mayor's blessing. And we're the only American team playing soccer representing the girls' side of the house in the United States, and we beat 4 European teams and 1 Canadian team to win the championship. It wasn't me. It was the girls in orange back there. But after sitting on my entry for a long time, I'm returning your flag.
Thank you very much. The clerk over there would be great. Thank you. That concludes all the cards that I have on people wanting to speak on this item. If that's all I have, we're going to close the public portion of this and move on to council discussion. Seeing no one else, we'll do just that. Council, I now look to you for a discussion regarding item number 6. Madam Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to start by asking a question of Mr. Larson. I did hear you in your presentation when you showed the possible uses on the site as just preliminary sketches and ideas, and you referenced that there would be a public planning process with a lot of opportunity for input from all of our residents. Could you give a little bit more information about how that would actually unfold?
Thank you, Vice Mayor McNutt, members of the council. We're just developing what that design process will be. We will be keying off of the general plan update process, which is starting its environmental review in the next few months with a set of recreation-related goals and policies, as well as youth and senior service needs. As part of that process, we did an inventory of existing recreational assets in our community. So we'll be teeing off of those two efforts to launch a design process with the set of stakeholders I put up on the screen earlier. Let me jump ahead one slide here. Which clearly with Santa Clara County, those discussions have already begun and pending council action tonight. They'll continue tomorrow. We also see tremendous opportunities with the Recreation Department, the youth and adult sports and recreational groups, and as with any planning process, we need to involve the neighboring businesses and residents. So we'll create open opportunities for people to be involved in the process. Based on prior studies, reports, and council direction, we do see the need for additional youth and adult sports facilities. That was the focus of the blueprint a year and a half ago, and we see this as the optimum site to achieve that. Whether it's 2 fields of what size, or 2 courts, or a building, or no building, how much parking is needed, all of that is still to be designed over the months ahead.
Yes, ma'am. Further.
This doesn't warrant a whole lot of discussion, I don't think. We're just as excited as you are about all of this. So this is the easiest motion and vote that we're going to have to take in a long time. So I'm going to go ahead and make the motion, and then I'm sure council will have a lot of comments that they want to make about this. So I will move all of the recommendations listed on our staff report 1 through 5 without having to go through them again. If I have a second, then I'll say another sentence or two.
Second.
Lots of seconds.
Yeah.
Multiple.
We have a motion, we have a second, and we have direction from staff where all the actions on item number 6, 1 through 5, can be approved by one motion.
So I'll do my 2 sentences now? Or
2 sentences?
Thereabouts?
Uh-huh.
So, do you remember when Pac Bell opened, or whatever it's called nowadays, in San Francisco? And how the first time you went there, I've been a frequent visitor to San Francisco, and you went there and it's like, where did this corner of the city come from? It just came like out of nowhere. And that's how I feel about 930 University. I mean, I have driven up and down University for over 30 years and seen the Verizon property. And I always thought, gee, that feels like there's probably a lot of space down in there, but I never went down in there because it was gated and, you know, why have to do that? And when we started looking at all of the options for expanding recreation facilities, which was our goal with the sale of Vasona, we didn't want to lose anything. We wanted to expand our capacity. And this piece of property came on the market, and Mr. Brzezinski and I had a chance to go down there as the subcommittee and tour it with staff. And it reminded me so much of the Pac Bell Park experience, because it's like, wow, this is great. It's flat. It's next to the creek. It's next to Vasona. It's got beautiful trees around the perimeter. It's empty in the middle. It's got easy access, and I think it's just a dream come true. So I really think that all the prayers and thoughts that this community has been putting forth, looking for a solution to how in the world are we going to find a piece of land in impacted Los Gatos to do this, has come to pass. And I am certainly looking forward to voting yes.
That was a run-on sentence. Councilmember Spector.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, if I might, a question of staff. Mr. Larson, you mentioned what would be happening next. Does staff know at this juncture when the community can specifically begin weighing in on the various configurations of the parcel?
No, we don't have that schedule programmed out yet. There are staffing, assignment, and workload issues we have to resolve. It won't be until the new year,
right,
but we will have that process in the new year.
And in conjunction with that, will the staff also be examining, you talked about in your presentation, various ways of accessing the property. Will you also be examining that as you go through this?
Yes, we're actually starting those discussions already through Deputy Town Manager Bud Lortz and others on the council. We are reaching out to the county for their possible participation in a variety of ways, as well as to the Water District for some of the waterway access that we might seek to obtain.
Thank you. Vice Mayor McNutt was absolutely right. This is a no-brainer, and it is so exciting. I mean, you know, to you, we may look like we're just sitting up here, you know, going through our regular business right now, but I will have to tell you, inside of us, we are just jumping up and down with excitement. But, you know, we're going to look professional for you and for our camera there. To share with you that was it a year and a half, I guess it was ago, when we did the sale of Vasona, and we got the $6 million, and we put it in reserve, and there were statements that we weren't really going to set the money aside for recreational use, and we weren't really going to accumulate the interest on that account and use it for recreational use. And we weren't really going to do these things. And when you're hearing this and you're sitting up here and you know in your heart that you really are going to do those things, but you're being told you're really not going to, it feels so darn good a year and a half later to say, we did it. So thank everybody up here, and like I said, this is an easy vote.
Thank you. Councilmember Rice.
Well, Citizen Ray was right. I wasn't around when on the council when the vote was taken to sell the property that the town owned in Vasona, but I am thrilled to be here when we're going to allocate some of those funds. From what I'm hearing, we're going to allocate some of those funds for this property. The subcommittee, Councilmember Przinski and Vice Mayor McNutt dealt with this property. The mayor and I were on a subcommittee looking at probably 20 other potential sites for recreational use. This process is not done. There's been a tremendous amount of work that has been done by the 5 people up here, as well as half a dozen of them over there as well, and I cannot begin to tell you how valuable our staff has been in helping us get to where we are and to where I hope we are going to be able to go in the future. So I'll echo the comments that I've heard before, but I'm looking forward to voting for this. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Przinski.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A couple of comments, and not to reiterate everything that's been said, but I agree with my peers on council. Mr. Leonardis was the one who pointed out that a year and a half ago we sat here with a number of individuals in the audience who are very critical of this. In fact, probably there may be at least one who still is critical of this event. But I think that the reality is that purchase of land in Vasona was the stimulus for what's going to be actually an ongoing and evolving process of developing recreation uses within the town. As the managers mentioned, we are currently reaching out to our stakeholders, including the Santa Clara County Board of Supervisors and the Santa Clara Valley Water District, to see if we can partner so that the $6 million that we have can be utilized more broadly, and that perhaps even the $3.1 million that we've earmarked for this project can be in some way mitigated by funding from other sources. Our intention is to not see this as the end point, but actually the continuing evolution of what is going to be, I think, a great asset to the community, particularly the youth of the community, as we look at other sites and other possibilities. And it's been really an exciting experiment in government, wherein we were told a year and a half ago, you can't buy anything in Los Gatos for $6 million. And that we will not be able to deliver on our promises. And it's only been a year and a half. And I look forward in the very near future to our being able to use this property on University to its greatest extent. The example given on the screen right now about the potential usage is an example only. And we intend to maximize the usage of this property to its greatest extent. And as Mr. San Juan indicated, the soccer community and the rest of the athletic community in Los Gatos want to be our partners. And we're inviting you tonight to be our partners, that we are going to take this to you so that we get a chance to dialogue about what is the highest and best use for this property. And for any other properties we might secure, and any other opportunities we might have in the near future. And hopefully this beginning that we experienced a year and a half ago has now begun to take fruition, and we look forward to an engagement with this community in the very near future, wherein we can one day cut the ribbon on this property and welcome the youth and the adults in our community to a recreation facility second to none. So I too am inclined to vote for this measure, and hopefully we will be able to move forward from this tonight.
Thank you. And I'll be the final speaker on this item. It was about a half a dozen years ago, I don't know, 5, 6, 7, whatever it was, we took a survey of this community and asked this community, what's important to you? And the responses we got back went from fiscal responsibility, balanced budget, public safety, police department. Library was huge. And as far as needs, youth sports facilities, specifically soccer, as has been pointed out, 1,800 kids a year, boys and girls, play soccer. That's the biggest use in town, and certainly the facility we're lacking most. But as I reflect back over those 5 or 6 years, your town council has provided a balanced budget every single year. Last month, we unveiled plans for the new library. Next month, we're cutting the ribbon for the new police station. Tonight, we had 68 organizations say they value youth, representing 17,000 adults that signed pledge forms saying we want to help our young people be happy, healthy, and successful. And now, using funds that we obtained a year and a half ago, keeping that promise of using those funds to acquire a piece of property to acquire and improve a sports complex. Your town council and staff, Mr. Lortz, I can't say enough what you've done for this town, is bringing this forward. And we're about to have a vote here. And I think tonight, this vote and the Project Cornerstone proclamation that we had earlier, I think tonight is perhaps top 5 greatest night in Los Gatos Council history. When you combine what has taken place, think about the last 3 months. A new library's coming, a new police station's coming, a sports complex is coming. Okay? This is a tremendous community, and it's been a partnership between organizations such as LGUSL and the 68 other groups that were here today. Everyone working together to make Los Gatos what I believe the finest community in the world. And this is going to happen. Los Gatos keeps its promises. Los Gatos values youth. I'm done. Ready to call for the question? All in favor of the approval of agenda item number 6 regarding the community and youth sports facilities and the acquisition of the property at 930 University Avenue, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank you very much. Motion passes unanimously. All right. If there's anybody that might want to leave before we go on to item number 7, go ahead. If you all want to stay, that's fine too.
See you in a couple of minutes. Mr. Mayor, if I could, while people are leaving, I also neglected to acknowledge Todd Capurso and the Department of Parks and Public Works for all the planning, design, graphics work they have been done to date, and then also Community Development Department, which will be picking up the permitting review process going ahead.
Thank you. Thank you to Community Development. Thank you to Parks and Public Works. Thank you to our town attorney. Thank you to our manager's office. Thank you all for making this. Let's give them another 60 seconds to exit, and please close the doors behind you. Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you, Rob. Think what we've done in an hour. I know, we're getting there though. Warming up. All right. We are now at item number 7. This is to adopt resolutions revising the enabling resolutions of the Arts Commission, Community Service Commission, Parks Commission, and Transportation and Parking Commission, and revising public art selection policies and procedures. We're going to have a staff report from Regina Faulkner, our Director of Community Services. Thank you very much.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. I have a very short introduction to this item. As follow-up to the Council Commission retreat held earlier this year, staff is presenting 6 commission-related resolutions for Council approval. 4 of the resolutions are revised enabling resolutions affecting the Arts Commission, Community Services Commission, Parks Commission, and the Transportation and Parking Commission. To summarize, these have been amended to have the Commission's scope of work focus on policy issues. In light of reduced staff capacity, the number of regular meetings has consistently been reduced for these commissions to 4 meetings per year. It's important to note that the commissions can have special meetings at any time, and in fact, if there's appropriate business, are encouraged to do so. The 5th resolution amends the public art policies and procedures. There are a number of changes to streamline the process. We have also reduced the number of public bodies from 2 to 1. The resolution sunsets the art selection panel and has the Arts Commission take the bulk of the responsibility for reviewing the art pieces. Finally, there is the last resolution, the 6th resolution, changes the attendance policy to reflect the reduced number of meetings for the commissions presented.
That conclude your report?
It does, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Council. Any questions of Mrs. Faulkner? Yes, Vice Mayor McNutt.
Thank you, Mayor. Actually, this isn't a question for staff, but before we're going into public comment next.
We will, yep, after Council, you bet.
Yeah, so I wanted to kind of set a framework for the discussion of this item because I have a lot of concerns about it. Staff's already heard about it. I think they're tired of hearing about it from me. But I just wanted to lay out those concerns because I'm very eager, and a couple of options, I'm very eager to hear from both the public and other council members on how they're analyzing this because, again, I find this troublesome. So I have no problem with the new name for the Arts and Culture Commission. Incorporating the Art Selection Committee in, I think, makes a whole lot of sense. I think having consistency in terms of office is logical. Where I really get hung up is on reducing the number of meetings across the board to 4 per year. And I'm basing that in part on my own personal experience on boards of directors that have had quarterly meetings. And what happens is you do not feel engaged and connected to the organization. There is such a time lag in between that you just, when you get together, you're not bonded as a group, you're not familiar with the issues. Sometimes if you miss a meeting, it's been a half a year, you can't even remember what the organization is or why you're there. And I don't think that format really helps us get out of our commissions what we expect as a town council, which is their eyes and ears on what's going on in the community, what the community values, the issues and so on that they're bringing to us. So I'm very concerned about across the board cuts to just 4 meetings per year, and I would be curious, again, what public and council thinks about that, and also about the idea of either leaving it the way it is now and letting the commissions come back to us during the next commission council retreat with their individual recommendation on their particular commission as to what an appropriate meeting schedule is, and or only reducing it to 6 a year, which still makes me a little uneasy. So I just wanted to lay all that out.
As far as a question?
No, it's not a question. I wanted to lay it out as we start the discussion so that you know that I'm listening to all of these options, but what I'm concerned about.
Okay, thank you. Any questions of staff? Seeing none, we'll turn to our public cards. We've got 2. We'll start with Mr. Ed Levesque and then Chris Miller.
Sitting here quietly, I don't talk very well. Thank you, Mayor Wasserman. I've been serving as chairman of the Traffic and Parking Commission for the past 3 years, and I've been on the commission for about 7 years. And our meetings are held at 7:30 in the morning on Thursday morning, the second Thursday of every month, and we're done in an hour. We don't dilly-dally. We don't have a lot of discussions on side issues because preparation and material is sent out ahead for them to study, and everybody comes alert. And I'm proud to say that my meetings last 1 hour. Say, I've had a couple go over when we had public speakers here, but we get our business done as quickly as possible. There's communication between staff and the commission, and I personally meet with staff prior to each meeting to make sure we all understand the agenda. This particular change that you're putting into us puts us down to 4 meetings per year. We now, up until this last July, used to have 12 meetings a year. And then we started skipping 2 meetings, July and December. And now we're squeezing it out to 1 every quarter. I plead with you to let us continue with 6 meetings a year. I think that's a compromise, but I think it'll give us a chance to really discuss some issues. And I'd like to bring up one issue that I have that hit me right in the face a couple of weeks ago. I had a meeting down at 151 East Main to talk to a tenant, and I couldn't get there. I usually leave my home out at Rinconada Hills probably 20 minutes before the meeting. I was a half hour late. Because there was no traffic moving, it was all parked on the streets. Main Street was jammed from Los Gatos Boulevard to Santa Cruz Avenue, and Blossom Hill Road was jammed. It's because we have school. All of a sudden, school became a real issue. And I'm sitting there worried because I'm thinking about these streets are used for more than just taking kids to school. We have occasional emergencies. I practiced medicine across the street for 35 years. We had a few times where we had a few nail biters and we had to call for help, and an ambulance would have never gotten there in time. Never. If it took a half hour, we're gone. Fire department, how do they get those huge trucks down our narrow streets where we park cars on either side and have 2 lanes of traffic? There's no room. What does the police department do? I don't know. They've got loud sirens, and they can scare people, but you can't move cars. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Levesque. If you can hold just a minute. Any questions of Mr. Levesque? No. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your time.
Mr. Chris Miller.
Good evening. So, as an elected official, I am saddened and sickened by this. I know how important public input is from the various organizations I've been involved in, including local school board. And by reducing the number of meetings, you're basically taking away opportunity for public input. Obviously, meetings are public, and that those would continue to remain that way. But you're reducing the number, if this is approved, reducing the number of opportunities for the public to speak to a commission, which ultimately then is part of the written record that goes to council. I served on the Parks Commission for 2 years. We met as a junior and senior in high school. We met once a month for 2 years, so 24 times. And quite honestly, that prepared me for public service as a board member, where we meet twice a month. If it was reduced to 4 times a year, it would be like 8 times in a 2-year service. Again, I grew a lot from when I was in high school to post college when I ran for school board, but it really prepared me for public service. I think this is probably the most damaging thing to the public process that I have seen this council undertake in the last 5-6 years I've been involved to meetings. I urge you not to support this. I mean, the other parts seem fine, but to limit public input, I think, is just wrong.
Thank you. Any questions, Mr. Miller? Mr. Miller, I've got a question for you. I understand what you're saying about limiting public input, and I don't have any idea how often the public takes opportunities of the various meetings and such that take place. I also know that if there's any specific issue that comes up in any one of the commissions, and they want to call a special meeting to deal with a specific issue as compared to the ordinary handling of business, okay, that a special meeting can be called and is provided for in this. Do you have any specific input or suggestions? For instance, Mr. Levesque was asking, instead of going from 12 down to 4, that he thought 6 would be a reasonable thing to try out. And that's how I'm kind of looking at this, is making a change, and then if that change is too drastic, we can change it back. Okay? That's how I approach it. I'm not speaking for any of the council members. Did you have any particular recommendation on any of these proposed reductions as far as amounts, or just in general, don't reduce the meetings?
My first initial thought is don't reduce the meetings. However, I do like Councilmember McNutt's thought to ask the council, ask the commissions what their needs are, because they're the ones that are dealing with this, month to month, current time. The other thought is that by having a monthly meeting, there's a date. So, for example, if I was really concerned about the trails and bikeways, I know that whenever they met, that would be something I could put on my calendar every month. The Arts Commission, I've attended a couple Arts Commission meetings, community service meetings. I know that I can go to that. By doing quarterly, that probably, it is still publicly noticed, I understand that as per Brown Act, but by having it consistently month to month, you're providing opportunity for the public to know when and where the meetings are held.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other questions? No? I don't have any other cards, so that'll close the public portion of this, and we'll turn to council for discussion on item number 7. Councilmember Spector.
Mr. Mayor, question of staff, if I might. Were these proposals relating to the various commissions weighed in on by the various commissions, or before you brought it here to us this evening?
We did present each of the commissions an opportunity to provide input. There was a memo that was sent to all 4 just recently. In addition, this did come up at the Council Commission retreat and has been a subject of ongoing conversation. I will add that there are different levels of comfort with reducing the number of meetings from 12 to 4. I believe there are some that would prefer to have 6, and there's one probably that's very comfortable with 4.
And I would add, following the council's budget hearing and budget retreat earlier this calendar year, last fiscal year, I met with all of the impacted commissions and told them that as part of budget action, staff would be recommending this later in the year. It was at that time that the 2 commissions staffed by PPW said, we'd prefer 6 times a year, not 4 times a year. I'm not sure there was any immediate action by Community Services and Arts after I met with them. That came following the resolution being distributed. We were really teeing this off the example of the Library Board, which meets 4 times a year, seems to be an effective functioning commission, and that was the model that we presented to council earlier this year, and we're following at this time.
Thank you. Councilmember Spector.
Thank you. Following up on that then, when items get before the council, there's a reason they get here, and it's generally because we're weighing varying interest. Vice Mayor McNutt asked the public to weigh in on her concerns about reducing the number of meetings. She asked for the council to weigh in on this issue. And so this is me weighing in at this juncture of the evening, at least. I understand that the demands on staff and what we're asking them to do has grown by virtue of our budgeting. And so I can appreciate the fact that it would be helpful to staffing to reduce the number of meetings of the commission. And right now, I'm thinking that is a good thing. I do note, I do read all of the minutes of the various commissions because they are given to the council, and for the most part, there's hardly any public input at any of these meetings. Some, but not a regular thing. I do note that these proposed resolutions allow the commissions to ask for special meetings if there are special issues to be discussed. I like that provision. And so right now, in specific response to the Vice Mayor's request, where I'm coming down on, given staffing, given what I've heard, would be not to reduce to 4, but to reduce to 6. But I'm open to listening to the rest of you.
Thank you. Councilmember Brzezinski.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So in keeping with Councilman Spector's orientation towards reflection, without determining an outcome just yet, I want to ask a couple of questions. First of all, the stimulus for making this recommendation is strictly based on staffing impacts and capacity, given the current fiscal crisis, correct?
That was part of the issue. That's where it came up, and it originated in the council budget retreat in February, I believe it was, or early March. The other issue that we've been trying to deal with in a variety of ways that we thought this recommendation would also benefit is making sure the commissions are dealing with policy matters that are making their way to council, not staff work or volunteerism efforts which don't make their way to council. And so there's a secondary benefit on that issue, but the primary source of the recommendation was, as we reduce some management positions, trying to reduce some workload.
So if I might, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
So were we not in this current financial crisis? And if our staffing were at the capacity that it was at prior to our moving into the financial issues of this current time, we probably wouldn't be discussing this, I would assume, because of the fact that when we look at our desire to retain and collect community input, it is on the basis of our commissions and committees that we so do, and that it's our intention by having these bodies in place that the council and staff are given that advisement and input that we would ordinarily receive if we did not have those committees and commissions in front of us. And I'm very concerned, as I think through the process of what is in front of us, I'm very concerned that for a technical or logistical issue, that is staff capacity, that we are running the risk of eliminating something that is of value to the community, and that is to fully vet issues in front of each of the commissions and to receive that advisement and input from the community. And my inclination at this point is to further study this, because my sense is that we may be eliminating something that's of great value to us, intrinsic to having advisory committees and commissions, for the sake of something that might be a transitory experience. Because at a certain point, we're going to come out of the recession. At a certain point, we may be able to increase our staffing to a level where we have a greater capacity. And I, too, read all of the minutes of our bodies. And I do not think that any of the committees or commissions, at least in my appraisal, any of them is acting right now in a manner that is either dysfunctional or insignificant. And in talking to Dr. Levesque's issue here, there's plenty to do with traffic and parking, and we've got problems that we need to resolve. The Arts Commission is going to be continuing to present us with significant insight into the cultural needs of the community and so forth. And I guess from my sense then is the reduction of the demand on staff time, is that really so significant at this point that we run the risk of eliminating the input or the opportunities for input that the community offers us? So that's why I'm somewhat skeptical about moving forward with this at this time. But I too would like to hear from the rest of the council.
Councilmember Rice.
I'm reminded of the adage, when you come to a fork in the road, take it. I came in thinking one way and find myself starting to head a different direction. I read the minutes as well, and at times I think, did they really need a meeting to address whatever was being addressed? But then again, I also am very concerned of going from 12 to 4 makes a pretty significant impact, and there is a lot of work that gets done out of the commissions. You know, sometimes it's very black and white, but when I look at in the staff report what the fiscal impact is, and it's about reducing and managing workload, which is important, and I don't diminish that for our staff, but I can't point to this makes sense because it's going to save X numbers of dollars. But what I can point to is it's going to be less public input to the council, and that is a concern. So I'm tempted to want to hear back, as Vice Mayor McNutt said right at the beginning, maybe let the different commissions come to us with what they think makes the most sense for them. It could be that one commission is fine with 4 times a year, one wants 6 and one wants 8, and if the reasoning is sound, I would support that. So I'd really like to hear more from the commissions themselves and what they feel they need and their justifications before I make a final decision on this.
Thank you, Vice Mayor McNutt.
Thank you. I put a lot of trust in the ability of the commissions to assess their workload and to assess how frequently they need to meet. And again, it's based on my own personal experience. In the 1980s, my first public service position in Los Gatos was on the Museum Commission, which you probably have never heard of because it doesn't exist anymore. Ms. Faulkner was here. I think that was your first gig with us, right, was that? And I take great pride in becoming chair of the Museum Commission and disbanding it because it was clear that we did not serve a purpose other than to cause trouble with the Museum Association. So, we recognized what our role was, which was to go away. So I would like us to move ahead, if we can, tonight on the arts selection panel, because we do have a recruitment period coming up, and I don't think it's fair to recruit for a position on a commission that a committee may go away. But otherwise, I would like to hold off on, I think, everything else, ask the commissions to give this more thought. They can always, it's easier to cancel a meeting if you don't have agenda items than to try to schedule a special meeting. You know how that is, to try to get your calendars together and so on, so they don't feel beholden to meet every month if they don't have anything. But, the Arts Commission in particular is probably at a transition point and may need some extra time to revision itself, and I don't want to shortchange that. So may I ask staff if there is a way to just take care of the arts selection panel committee tonight, then I will make a motion to that effect.
Thank you, staff.
Yes, you can do that by adopting, I have to get the right one, I'm sorry.
Yeah, 5.
Item number 5. And you may also want to consider adopting the other enabling resolutions without the change in the language about the number of meetings.
And that,
okay, Vice Mayor, no, please continue.
I'll go ahead and make that motion, because you're right, because it has other, in terms of consistency of terms of office and the policy focus, which was really what was important for the council, I think, as we were discussing that. So, Mr. Attorney, do I have to do them individually, or can I do them all together?
You can do them all together and just make that modification applicable to all of the relevant resolutions.
And that modification is to not recommend the reduction in terms of times of the meeting, but everything else. Okay, thank you.
All right, so I will move for adoption of the resolutions as detailed in items 1 through 5 in the staff report, with the exception of changing the frequency of meeting dates.
Okay, we have a motion made. Looking for a second.
I'll second.
Have a second for purposes of discussion.
Okay.
We're there. And I'm going to recognize Councilman Brzezinski first.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
You're welcome.
So I was going to, before the Vice Mayor made that request, I was also going to recommend the powers and duties language that's been proposed for revision is appropriate. I think, by the way, I think the cleaning up of this document is very, very good, and I commend staff for the work done. But the powers and duties, I think, is appropriate, and it does reflect the council's requests previously. I want to clarify, and by not changing, at least at this point in time, the exact number of meeting dates, we are not changing the number of representatives on each body as well, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so the only changes would be then the duties and functions section and any other language corrections that have been made.
It would also, I'm assuming in the maker of the motion, would not change the number of meetings missed and what constitutes disqualification. So that piece would remain.
Seconder, you agree with that too?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Brzezinski, were you done?
I do want to make sure we do have the opportunity before we conclude this item to talk to the issue of receiving input from the committees and commissions regarding each of these. Because, I think Vice Mayor McNutt's comment about her previous disbanded organization was right on mark. We have a commission right now, I think it's the Personnel Committee, that never meets, correct? Okay, once a year.
Architecture?
Architecture. I mean, we've got a few, and I think that we already have a practice that says we will meet primarily on the basis of task. And so with that in mind, I would like to see us codify, perhaps, the idea that we are going to inquire of each of these commissions and committees what is the appropriate, what is their view of the appropriate meeting frequency, and require of them validation of that, so that this is not just an exercise in, well, we want to meet every month, but rather, when we get together, that there is some ability on our part to analyze the effectiveness of the body and the frequency requirements given the tasks of the body.
Thank you. And seconder, I'll be right with you. Motion maker and Mr. Korb, what Mr. Brzezinski just suggested about having this go back to the commissions and committees to discuss, can that be part of the original motion, or should that be a second act?
Well, it can be, but I think staff is seeing that as, as direction to take back to their commissions and get their recommendations prepared for the meeting that will come in the future with the commissions and the council.
Motion maker, are you okay with that? The direction's in there. Second, are you okay with that?
Absolutely.
All right, now you've got the floor next.
I just wanted to confirm with the motion maker that you meant 1 through 6 as opposed to 1 through 5, because 6 is on the next page.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Councilmember Spector.
Thank you. Remind me, I can't remember quite, but are we meeting with all of the commissions October 26th, or is that some other meeting?
That is the scheduled date for interviews.
Okay.
For the vacancies that currently exist. The next council commission retreat will be in the first quarter of 2010.
And so that we can wrap this whole thing up neatly, is there some way, by virtue of being in this motion or simply by being staff direction, that the issue of how many meetings does each commission want and why, can it come back to us at that point?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, what I think staff will interpret from the direction is to go back in those commissions which haven't had an explicit discussion about their meeting frequency, workload, and even their need to exist. We will go back and schedule that discussion for each commission to then bring their recommendations back to you if they see a change to that portion of their resolution, probably when we do the council retreat with the commissions.
Thank you.
Vice Mayor McNutt, motion maker.
Thank you. Actually, Mr. Brzezinski pointed this out to me that I don't think we do need number 6, because number 6 only refers to changing the attendance requirements, and if we're not changing the number of meetings, then we probably don't need to do that at this time. Is that correct? Correct. So I brilliantly was right the first time accidentally. Okay.
Thank you. So your motion is in regards to items 1 through 5 and also includes the non-adoption of number 6. Correct? Because we're not addressing number 6. I just don't want to have to come back with another motion regarding number 6. So we'll make all-inclusive. Okay. Any further discussion? I think it's all been said. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. Carries unanimously. We now go on to agenda item number 9. How can that be?
8.
Yeah, why do I have... Okay, 8. Which is, let's see, the introduction of an ordinance revising town code section, yada yada, regarding the passage of Senate Bill 731, which regulates massage therapy practitioners and therapists. And I will look to Captain Elena Forrest. I'm not even going to look at my notes. I'll just look right at you to give our staff report. Take it away, Captain.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, members of the public. The ordinance you have before you discusses some changes, and it's based primarily on the passage of SB 731, which the governor signed in November of 2008. The law took effect September 1st of this year, and it supersedes local permitting and licensing for those who obtain state certification. The board that was developed based on this law is the California Massage Therapy Council. It's a nonprofit governing board that is going to regulate the certification process. This process is voluntary, so massage therapists can either get state certified or they can stay within the jurisdictions that they're working and still be permitted by local law enforcement primarily. So the massage ordinance reflects the addition of the state law certification language, consistency in the use of the contemporary term of therapist, and the elimination of the massage establishment and managing employee application process. No changes were made to the regulatory sections on operating requirements, prohibited acts, criminal penalties, sanitation requirements, or inspections. And we have about 120 massage therapists in town right now that are permitted. I know of only 4 right now that are in the state certification process, although the state has received over 2,000 applications. So I'm hoping that a lot of our therapists have already applied, and they have not issued any permits yet or certifications yet, but they are working on a lot of processes to get that done. So any therapist who doesn't want to go through the certification process will still be required to go through our permitting process. And I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Captain. Council, any questions, Captain Forrest? Seeing none, I'll look to the public. I have you. Councilmember Spector, I thought you were pointing over there.
This is like, this is the English teacher part of me. On the ordinance that you have, the draft with the delineations, interlineations, on page 8. Yes, subparagraph 1. Yes. The police chief shall either require a recent photograph of the applicant, either is probably needs to be deleted. That probably was a carryover when you had more than one thing.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And you also had it on the same error in the final draft.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sure.
Impressive. I know, but didn't just read it. You edited it. Any other questions? Seeing none of staff, I have no cards from the public here, so we'll open and we'll close that portion. Look back to council now for discussion.
I had a question of staff.
Okay. We're having discussion. Do you have a question of staff?
I do have a question of staff.
Go right ahead.
Captain Forrest, would there be any reason that we wouldn't want to set some kind of a sunset period in the ordinance language to where state certification is the only thing that we would accept so as to relieve the local jurisdiction of any responsibilities on that?
We thought about that, but because the certification process is voluntary, I wouldn't want to require massage therapists to have to do something even though they don't have to do it by state certification. Does that make sense? Sort of, maybe.
Well, I guess it does make sense. I'm just thinking that it's an opportunity to maybe turn flip the requirements as they keep dropping things to the local jurisdiction for us to have to pay for and do. Mm-hmm. We can move something out of the town jurisdiction and up to the state level to where, yes, it may be voluntary, but if you want to do it in Los Gatos after, 3 years or 5 years from now or something reasonable amount of time, that state certification is all we will accept. I'm just curious if that had been thought of and what the pros and cons would be.
It was thought of briefly, but I think that because there's 2 levels of certification as well within the state, there's a 500-hour requirement and a 250-hour requirement, and a lot of our therapists over the last year and a half have had to do some extra schooling to come up to the 300-hour requirement that we have. I just didn't want to make it any more difficult for them at this particular time. I also would like to see how this process works within the state, and since it is a nonprofit governing board, I was a little uncomfortable putting a mandate like that on it.
Thank you.
Any further council discussion or a motion regarding agenda item number 8?
Mr. Mayor, I will make a motion in a second, but I have a question. So there are no massage therapists with us tonight, at least not that I recognize. And we have had some lively input from that community in the past, and that was when we were requiring 300 hours. Do you envision any pushback with the state issues now that these are on the table for this organization?
Well, I think the state was smart in having 2 levels, and so the 250-hour requirement as a practitioner, all of our therapists at this point, except for a couple, would be able to, apply and be certified. So I haven't heard any pushback. I just haven't heard a lot of excitement about getting into yet another process, especially for those that have just renewed with us. I think they're going to wait a little bit longer so they don't have to pay another fee and get fingerprinted again and go through the state process. But once their renewal comes up, they may do that.
Okay, and if I just might continue,
please.
Last question. When we went into this process in the beginning for ourselves, the concern was to make sure that the community was safe from illegitimate practices. That has not in any way been jeopardized by this new state offering, if you will.
No, I don't believe so. And actually, they're doing a lot of work with local law enforcement. The public policy committee that I'm on is mostly law enforcement individuals from a lot of cities throughout the state who are providing input to the state AMTC to make sure that none of the things that you might be initially concerned with are going to happen. And so we've been really forceful in our recommendations to the CAMTC to make sure that they're not going to let anything fall through the cracks.
Okay.
Thank you. Mr. Korb.
Mr. Mayor, before you entertain a motion on the substance of the proposed ordinance before you, I was going to suggest that you first direct the clerk administrator to read the title of the proposed ordinance and then entertain a motion to waive the reading of the full text.
Thank you. I'll do that now. What he just said, directing the clerk to read. I didn't write it all down, so go for it.
Ordinance
Thank
of
you.
the
Direct the
town.
clerk administrator to read the title of the ordinance and move to waive the reading of the ordinance, please.
Okay. Ordinance of the Town of Los Gatos amending Article 11 of Chapter 14 of the Los Gatos Town Code regarding the regulation of massage therapists.
And I will second your motion to move to waive the reading.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Sorry. Opposed? None. All right, now we're back to Diane.
No, it's you.
Back to me. As introducing the ordinance?
You have to make a motion.
To make the motion to introduce. I'm looking for a motion to introduce the ordinance to effectuate the zoning code amendment.
So moved.
Thank you.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Motion moved and seconded. Any discussion regarding that? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. Now we will direct the clerk administrator to publish the ordinance within 15 days after its adoption, and no motion is required for that. But thank you. Thank you, council. All righty. Now on to item number 9, which has to do with 20 Dittos Lane. And we're going to look to our deputy town manager, Bud Lortz, to give the staff report.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. This report is addressing 20 Dittos Lane in terms of background. Rome Development Corporation expressed interest in developing affordable housing at 20 Dittos. In April, they submitted a proposal, and that was followed by extensive discussions to determine the feasibility of the project. Rome and the town have explored the development options for 20 Dittos. In terms of the acquisition, the recommended development option is to enter into agreements to acquire and convey 20 Dittos. The agreements would facilitate the acquisition and redevelopment of the property, resulting in two very important issues, and that is the elimination of the current blighted conditions in that, on that property, and development of an appropriate number of affordable units at that location. In terms of the acquisition, there's an assignment agreement. Rome would assign the rights to the redevelopment agency to acquire the property. The agency then becomes the buyer of the property and would make an additional deposit towards the purchase in late September. The balance of the purchase would be paid closing prior to December 31st of this year. The agency's obligation as buyer would be conditioned upon the agency's review and acceptance. In terms of the acquisition of the property, the next step in the process is an exclusive right to negotiate, or what's called an ERNA agreement. The proposed agreement would be between the agency and an affiliate of Rome. That would commence a 270-day period that would allow us to go into what's called a DDA, or a disposition and development agreement, to determine several things. One is the nature, scope, and conceptual design. Second is the standards, requirements, and also the schedule of construction. And then the purchase price of the property, which then Rome's affiliate would be acquiring that from the agency. In terms of fiscal impact, acquisition is funded by the Redevelopment Agency's Low to Moderate Income Housing Fund. The anticipated costs are $3.5 million. Recommended actions are set forth in the staff report, and the slide replicates those. Adoption of the resolution approving the agreements to facilitate acquisition and redevelopment of the property, and then authorize a budget adjustment of $3.5 million. That concludes staff's report. We're here to answer any questions. Two representatives of Rome are available for any questions the council may have.
Thank you, Mr. Lortz. Very fine report. And also thank you to Captain Elena Forrest, who I saw left after her agenda item was over, for a very nice report too. Mr. Larson, if you'll pass that on. Council, any questions of Mr. Lortz at this time? No. I would turn and look for cards, but I don't have any. I see that we have Rome representatives here, including Mr. Imami. So council, if you have any questions, we can bring them forward if you wish, because they're choosing not to come forward at this time. So we'll close the public portion, and I'll look to council for discussion. Councilmember Spector.
I just jump into the breach here.
Sure.
Staff just presented to those of you still here and those of you who are watching a summary of the proposal before us. And let me just fill in some of the things that weren't in the report. And that is, should we go forward if the council makes that decision this evening? And I will be asking staff a related question. There are steps. There is a $75,000 payment that is due on or before September 25th, and another payment that's due in November, another one that's due at the end of December, at which time the full purchase price could be paid, unless an additional payment extends the time frame until March of 2010. In examining the issues on this, I personally was looking at On the one hand, that Ditto's Lane property is something that I know many of us, or all of us here on the council, have looked at many, many times in the past year as a piece of property, as staff has described as blighted, and definitely an area that could be put to far better use right in the middle of our town, where you can walk places and would be really good housing and would be a really good use of our redevelopment agency funds. Another thing that needs to be understood is that whenever you have a redevelopment agency, that agency has to put aside a certain amount of the property tax benefits that it gets for low-income housing or for below-market price housing. It has to keep it in a fund, and it has to use it within a certain amount of time. And we haven't been doing that, and we haven't gotten in trouble, but we have been told that we really need to get a move on. And that money keeps accumulating. So this will be an opportunity for us to use RDA funding for low-income or below-market price housing in a way that it is supposed to be used. So that's a good thing. But what I was personally weighing against that good thing is jumping into a $3.1 million purchase. And I was very happy to read and to learn from staff that we don't have to do that all in one jump. We can just go to the $75,000 payment in the end of this week, and that will buy us time to continue to explore the project and issues until November. And again, I'm waiting to hear what everyone else has to say on the council, but right now that would be the move that I would be comfortable making. Mr. Mayor, along that line, I would have a question of staff.
Please, let's ask that.
You have here as your recommendation an adjustment to the budget in the amount of $3.5 million, which I assume would be all of the expenditures that you had put in your presentation. If the council was going to take a smaller step, the $75,000 or some of those amounts, would your recommendation for the motion be the same, or would it be different?
Mr. Larson, Mr. Lawrence.
It'd be the same, but remember, we're working with the subcommittee, and that is yourself and Councilmember Persinski. So every step in the process will be going through this subcommittee in terms of expenditure. So the first step, as you say, is the $75,000 step.
And if I may interject, and that adjustment is simply that. It's a transfer between accounts.
Correct.
Nothing's going anywhere. It's just an accounting entry, debit and credit.
It sets up the capital budget account for this action. Any expenditures out of that
would come from
still require the normal process.
Correct.
If we didn't set up the account, there would just have to be a budget action every other time that would require council action.
Thank you. Ms. Spector, please continue.
Thank you. That being said, this would transfer money from one line item to another line item, okay? And so we would have $3.5 million moved over, but where would the recommendation from this body to spend $75,000 or whatever they choose to spend, where would that be reflected in our motion?
It's encompassed in the resolution to the first resolution. The assignment of the purchase, because the payments, timing, and schedule are specified in there. Encompassed in the council discussion is direction to your negotiators to not proceed without each additional expenditure without direction as part of the negotiations.
And is that something we're just saying, or are you suggesting we add it to the recommendation here?
You could add it.
I think it's clear direction to staff. Staff has the authority under your resolution to execute the contract with whatever additional direction council provides. It sounds to me as though you're providing direction to keep council informed every step of the way and to get additional marching orders with regard to the additional steps that the contract otherwise provides for.
That's correct. Thank you.
Gotcha. Mr. Brzezinski?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So if I could just reiterate Exhibits A and Exhibits A and B in our report are not part of the motion, but they are direction to staff that would result from our making the motion tonight, correct?
Well, I'm not sure I heard the motion. So the recommendation that came forward is a resolution that would approve those two exhibits and authorize the manager to execute those two agreements, subject to the conditions in those two agreements, with additional direction, if I'm understanding council correctly, to ensure that with regard to the steps that the purchase contract has in it, particularly those financial commitments, to come back to council and ensure that council is informed, or at least the subcommittee, and that we have approval to go on with those additional steps.
All right.
Okay. Councilmember Spector, I'm going to go back to you for a minute here before we hear from the other council members. What Mr. Korb was just talking about was the recommendations as they are, adopting resolutions, but then what you added in, which I certainly support, was getting town council approval of those distributions as they are laid out in this.
Yes, and that's what using different words, that's what I think Mr. Korb just said.
Yes.
I couldn't write as fast as he was speaking, but the concept is, yes, before we go from one step to the other, as they exist in the contract, we receive council approval. I want to be clear, we're not talking about, and maybe we need to discuss this, we're not talking about Mr. Brzezinski and I's approval. We're talking about council approval.
This may be a matter for the town attorney to discuss on what's appropriate items to come back for direction to your negotiators in closed session versus what requires public action and approval as a budgetary item.
Let's get some clarification.
Well, let me just simply say, if it's appropriate to go to closed session, we go to closed session. If it's not, it has to be open session. But the direction, it sounds like, is the whole council weighs in on those additional steps required by the purchase agreement.
Correct.
And I think we understand that.
Okay. Councilmember Rice has nothing. Vice Mayor McNutt, anything else to add? Okay. Councilmember Spector, you want to make that motion?
Sure.
No pressure.
No. All right. I'm going to move that we adopt the resolution approving two related agreements that would facilitate an effort to acquire and develop the approximately 1.58 acre parcel at 20 Dittos Lane, subject to the approval of the full council on the, and what did you call it? Distributions delineated in the contract.
Second.
Motion made and second. Discussion. Seeing none, all in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None.
You want me to do the next?
Okay, we need to, yes, if you are so inclined.
Yeah, I know. I am so inclined.
Okay.
All right. I'm going to move to authorize a budget adjustment to the fiscal year 2009-2010 operating and capital budget in the sum of $3.5 million for estimated costs related to the acquisition of the property located at 20 Dittos Lane, funded by the available fund balance in the Town of Los Gatos Redevelopment Agency's Low and Moderate Housing Fund.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion regarding this motion. Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Carries unanimously. That ends number 9. I'm now going to recognize Town Manager Greg Larson.
And just to confirm, based on the motion as Councilwoman Spector stated it, we will come back, obviously, for the initial payment specified in the agreement that's due this Friday. Your action tonight affirms that payment, and there's no separate action required by council.
Agreed.
Yes.
Agreed. Yep, thank you. Council, anything else to say? No? This meeting is adjourned at 9:05.